Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Word Podcast. And we are on number 14 already. And I'm having fun with this. So, we are on a bigger topic today, less quick hits, just one big main topic. And that is how you, how I as a coach, how I as an athlete deal with failure. You know, we all have had those races that didn't go well. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about how to deal with those races, what our mindset is coming out of those races, and, sort of that reflection of understanding what happened in those races and what we're going to do about it. So, there's a variety of ways we can talk about this, but I made some notes in how I would coach you to go through it, as well as some of the observations I've made on my own racing when things have not gone as planned, or the outcome, the result is not what I was looking for. And in many cases, when that happens, the disappointment, the almost shock of it not going well, and how we want to work our way through that. The interesting thing, though, is that we're in an ultra-endurance event. So this isn't like, the 100-meter dash, where all of a sudden you look over at that scoreboard lighting up and you see your time is not that fast or your result is not what you wanted. We have many, many, many hours to notice that we're not going as fast as we want, to notice that we're not getting the desired outcome or result that we want, to notice that we might not make it to the finish line, right? Because this is ultra endurance stuff. So maybe finishing, maybe just completing the epic task, the big goal that we set for ourselves, maybe just completing it is the goal. And we might be seeing during the event that we're not making the cutoff times, that we're not feeling well and we're not able to continue, that the conditions or the day is just not going well, and we have that disappointing result looming right in front of us. And that makes it even worse because in so many cases we're stuck in that disappointment as we're still participating. And so we also go through the process differently than most athletes out there, of sort of deciding as we're sort of in that disappointing process, in that disappointing result, well, do we want to continue? Or should we just call it quits right here? I am not achieving my goal. So the first part there, of course, is that we want to finish. Unless we're injured, our goal should always be to finish. Of course, they might pull us off the course or might say you didn't make the time cutoff. That's a different story. But if we have an opportunity to finish what we started, at least there's a sense of closure of having done the full event. In many cases, our ultra-endurance endeavors don't come around every few weeks, every week, every month, sometimes not even every 6 months. Maybe it's a once-a-year event, and it's not going the way we want it to go. Well, out of respect to ourselves, out of respect to the time and the sacrifices we've made, out of respect to the family that put up with you and the sacrifices they made in your time and also in helping you with your training. In so many respects, we want to respect the outcome, the race, the work we put in it by finishing it. I know there are many, many examples of people athletes, not just of people, who do not finish a race. And in some cases, they're making a living from it, and they have an opportunity to race again next week or in 2 weeks or next month. And that's a different scenario because you want to limit the amount of fatigue, wear and tear on the body, quickly recover, and improve your performance in a few weeks, in a week, in a month. But most of us as amateurs, as age groupers, are looking to finish this event. We were hoping to finish it faster, better, with a better result, better outcome, or completing it. And now we want to finish it finish what we started. It allows us to at least know what happens on the back end of the course. It allows us to learn more about ourselves as we sort of wallow and work our way through. It allows us to already analyze and understand what's going on. But, you learn so much from racing. You learn so much in the process of racing and for your future racing, for your future training. But you also learn a ton about yourself. And as you're fighting your way through the back end of an ultra endurance event and you feel crappy and, there's some pity and misery, self-pity that is, hopefully not by the spectators having pity on you, we go deep into ourselves and question ourselves and work through some difficult questions and scenarios and wallow away. And those are not good times, but they make us a better person. And for some of the reasons that are coming up and as I go through this podcast, but always try to finish unless you're injured again. Always try to learn more about yourself. Always try to encourage others as they're finishing, because guess what? Just because you aren't having your day, you can still make somebody else's day. You can still run or walk with somebody who them at that pace and what they're doing might be achieving their goals. And you might be able to help somebody achieve their goals and see the joy and the fulfillment not only in helping a stranger achieve their goals, but what's happening at that part of the race where people are achieving things that you might have lost the connection to, what you used to think was an achievement, but now is nothing that special because you've progressed as an athlete and you're faster and stronger and fitter maybe. But there's a lot to learn on the back half of bad races. And for many people, they also discover that love of the sport and why they're doing it. If you can walk your way through a marathon of an Ironman triathlon and you're out there for those 5-6 hours and you get to the finish line, hey, you finished it, you did it, you completed it, you respected yourself. And in that time, by doing it and overcoming it and staying positive, you learned, I bet you, why you love the sport, why you're doing what you're doing. And if you were just looking to check a box and completing an Ironman or an ultra endurance event, a 100-mile run, a 50-mile run, a half triathlon, a marathon, whatever, if you were just checking the box, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast anymore, or wouldn't have even started. Because you are in this from a lifestyle, from an enjoyment perspective, from feeling alive and healthy, loving the training and the fitness, but also loving the events. Taking part in ultra endurance events is inspiring. It's fun. It's supportive. But also there's a sense of pride, a sense of achievement, a sense of adventure as we're doing it. And while many people say, oh, it's all about the journey and I love the training and the event wasn't that big of a deal, I find that hard to believe for a variety of reasons. But the main one being, you wouldn't put yourself through these hours and hours and hours of, I wouldn't call it suffering because that has a very negative connotation to it, but you wouldn't put yourself through that effort, through that challenge, if there wasn't something about doing it on that day and completing it on that day and feeling alive and ready to embrace the day, that day, where you have to wake up in the morning and do it that day. Anybody can do it on the day they're ready or they want to do it, or they're, the stars align and they had a perfect day lined up and the weather and this and that, and they wake up and they have their day. No. It's a day on the calendar that you have to be ready for. And it's your adventure. And all of a sudden now you, not all of a sudden, but now you have to do it on that day. There's no choice. And that challenge and that pressure and that prep and that executing and that feeling connected and knowing that you're hitting your plan and your goals, that is invigorating. That's fun. And that's what motivates us going forward. So when we're not having that day, hopefully it reminds you of how important that good day is to you and why you do want to finish this event. So I wanted to start that topic today, dealing with failure, with that first piece of understanding that we want to finish. We want to respect ourselves and everything we did for this race in our training, in our prep, in our mindset, by at least finishing it because we can, because we're healthy enough, because we have the proper perspective. Why? Because we enjoy it. It's fun. We talked about that last time. And so finish. We, me as your coach, me as a fellow athlete, you as the athlete, we will figure it out once you cross the finish line. We will move forward and turn this into a positive and be stronger from it once we cross the finish line. Like I usually say to my athletes, your pain today is strength tomorrow. And as we're going through those motions in an ultra endurance sport where we're feeling the disappointment as we're still doing the event, that either burns a huge fire in your belly and it crystallizes your focus on why you want to improve next time. So you can already hear in my voice and how I'm describing it on how I personally and how I like to also coach dealing with failure. For every challenge we encounter, there's an opportunity for growth. So here we are dealing with failure. And as a coach, it's hard to watch athletes come up short of their goals or their expectations at their A event. We worked hard. We invested time and effort and emotion into seeing you succeed and me looking forward to seeing you succeed and have that joy in your day. And in many cases, while the will and effort was there, the performance, the result, the outcome, the achievement, for some reason wasn't, right? And so what you might consider a failure, and let's say we agree, it's a failure. I mean, it's such a hard word to use, and I'm not really a fan of it. I call it more we didn't achieve our goals. We fell short of our goals. We missed our goals. But failure, when you complete an ultra endurance event, and some of the events that all of us are doing, you are doing, there's no failure already. So that's why this whole topic of the podcast of failure is such a negative, lame word. So dealing with failure, we'll use it as the topic today, but I'm not a fan of that word. But for many coaches, once that disappointing result happens, the next part is just as hard, right? What do they say to their athlete? You want to pass on the right sense of comfort, but also want to continue to instill confidence after a crappy performance, right? So what we as coaches say right after the event, it also depends on, how that athlete, you, the athlete, behaves afterwards. I mean, the reactions go all the way across the spectrum from those who sulk quietly and are just angry but don't say anything, to super emotional, to inconsolable, completely upset, to those that get angry and throw their bike or kick their bike or whatever, right? Or I refuse to pick up my packet, my not my packet, but my post-race gear, or just stomping off. I've seen it all. But I've also heard a bunch of cookie-cutter approaches from other coaches when they're talking to their athletes about their performance. I mean, I've heard the dismissive coach, you'll be fine. It's just one bad race. Don't worry about it. Everything will be okay. Well, that doesn't make you feel that much better after all the work you put in. There's the supportive coach, which, That's well, you're a great athlete, you're really talented, and that result, doesn't really show what you're capable of. Well, again, it doesn't really come down to what we're looking for, the answer, or how to deal with it. And, I know that I'm a better athlete. Of course I know that, or else I wouldn't be disappointed, or else I wouldn't have set those goals. So that doesn't help, really. Then there's then there's the silver lining coaches. I like those. Hey, at least you weren't last. Hey, at least you finished. Well, come on. We just said we're going to finish. We respect ourselves too much. We know ourselves too well. We're too convicted and strong. And we have too strong of a personality and character to not finish. And I know I'm not trying to call anybody out by saying if you don't finish it, you don't have those traits. I just want you to remember and use this as motivation next time to surely try to finish first. And there are many reasons why in races people don't finish. That's fine. I'm just saying if we're capable of it, don't just pull the ripcord. And lastly, there's that challenging coach, right? Yeah, you had a bad result or bad outcome, bad time. So what are you going to do about it, right? That's also, that's usually how I would work as the challenging coach, but I like to spin it more into a different direction. And I think there's an alternative way to approach it. And as you guys heard in the opening, I really do believe that it's about flipping it and flipping the narrative to how are we going to turn this into the best thing that ever happened to us. Now, I know that's a bit extreme, but when we ask ourselves, how can I make this result, this race outcome, this time, this disappointing achievement, this failure, how can I make it the best thing that has happened to me or best thing to happen to me? And there's several reasons I like it. I like this type of self-questioning. I've used the statement version on this for numerous occasions in my life, whether it's for breakups to injuries, right? How am I going to make this injury? How am I going to use this time to my advantage? How am I going to turn this injury into me becoming a better athlete because of it? How am I going to make anything, X, Y, Z, whatever it is, the best thing to ever happen to me? And I know that, again, that's very aggressive, the way I'm wording it, but there's many things, many outcomes, many positives in a bad result. And if we move forward knowing that it's the best thing, that we can look back someday and say, that was the best thing to ever happen to me, I think it's a pretty darn good statement. And on a side note, it worked exactly like that for me. A couple of years ago, I did Ironman Lake Tahoe, and I was injured through the summer. I had a hip problem, nothing major, but I couldn't run. And I spent a great summer up in Tahoe training. I was really excited to train on the course. I spent a lot of time swimming, biking, and occasionally running on the soccer fields right next to the course. But I spent a good amount of time prepping for that race. And while the injury got better and was gradually going away, come race day, my body was just not there. I could feel the injury getting worse again, and it just wasn't working out for me. Besides that, it was absolutely freezing. It was 28 degrees on the bike. It was already a miserable day, but because of that tightness, because of that cold, and because of that, the temperatures made the running and the pain of the hip flaring up again, made it a problem. And so, in that case, I had to pull the ripcord. I stopped after most of the first loop of the run. And there it was, dealing with failure. And, I wanted to qualify for Kona with that race for the following year. I wanted to, spend the winter with a little bit of downtime and then go into the next year with a solid prep for Kona. Well, all gone, right? A summer of training, all gone. Spending a lot of time and resources and investing a lot of time away from family, up in Tahoe training, and now I have nothing to show for it. Well, I turned that anger, I turned that disappointment, I turned that result of no result into literally the best thing that ever happened to me. I noticed that my mindset that day was not a positive one, was not a good one. I was already accepting the negatives of the day. I was letting them get to me too early in the day. And come the run, I had allowed the negative little devil on my shoulder to talk to me too loudly. And it was enough of a reason to say, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to mess with this injury. In hindsight, could I have probably taken some Advil and figured it out and suffered through it and maybe still had a decent result and still achieved my Kona qualifying time? Maybe not winning my age group, but getting second or third so that I could have still had that outcome? Yes. I clearly beat myself up for that in the weeks after. But because I had that mindset of how can I make this the best thing to ever happen to me, I signed up for a 100-mile running race for that February so that I was training immediately a few days after the race, or the non-finish of Ironman Lake Tahoe. I did my first 100-miler, a flat one, but it set me up running-wise and fitness-wise and focus-wise for the rest of the season. A few weeks after that 100-mile running race, which was in February, was the first weekend of February, I did Ironman Texas in early May. I went under 9 hours for the first time in many years again, an 8:58 or something like that, and qualified for Kona for that year, the one that I was looking to qualify at anyway. But because I had that bad result and because I wanted to make it the best result and learning and best thing to ever happen to me, I was able to do a race like Ironman Texas at a faster result, a better result, a more surprising result than I ever thought I would have. And when I finished that Ironman Texas race, and my race report says it, I said this outcome, the way the season went, and not finishing Tahoe and learning my lessons from it and staying fit from it and staying angry from it and staying focused from it, gave me the opportunity to go under 9 hours one more time in my life. I mean, I doubt I will again. And so it was just an incredibly rewarding feeling knowing that the bad outcome was the best thing that could happen in that situation. So back to our dealing with failure. So what are some of the other reasons why this approach can work well for us? And it's worked well for me, and as I just described, but also for many of my athletes over the years. And so let me go through a few of them. One, so how can I make this outcome the best thing to happen to me? Well, it instills a sense of accountability, right? If there's one thing we stink at, it's accurate self-reflection. We cover up some bad training with excuses and over-exaggerate the good training days we had. And that's how our mind works. We remember the good things, like, man, I had some great training days, but we seem to forget the ones we skipped, the bad days, and so on as we go into the race. Then when it comes to crunch time, we wonder why we don't deliver, right? And that's completely natural. After all, we do this to protect ourselves. But in reality, that approach, that lack of accountability, daily accountability, is hurting us. Because we never quite get down to the crux of why we performed the way we did. But by understanding that accountability, that daily accountability, we can actually understand a lot better why the failure happened, why the result didn't happen. And when I challenge you, the athlete, as your coach, to find the best case scenario from the bad race, you're forced to look at yourself. So when I'm saying, what happened? What's the best thing that can happen from this race? What are you learning going forward? It allows you to analyze your own result from an outside looking in perspective. And so you look at yourself, knowing what you know and how you would improve it. It's not me, your coach, telling you how to improve. It's you. And it's you understanding what it is you can improve. You're saying to yourself, basically, if I were coaching myself, what did I observe? What would I change? What would I do better? Accountability. You know it. There's answers to the result somewhere in there. Did I just not follow the plan? Did I skip some workouts? Did I have many excuses? Did I not do the workouts the way I needed to? Did I just ride with friends and not do the interval? Did I go too hard on easy days and too easy on hard days? Did I choose to spend the winter skiing instead of training properly? And now I want an outcome. I mean, there's a zillion reasons, but you know it. And because you're looking for that accountability, because you want this race result to be the best thing that happened to you, you have to look into yourself and understand why it went wrong. You have to want it. It's your finish line. And if you care about the result, care every day, not just in crunch time, the result will happen. And again, it's about moving forward, right? It's your finish line. You want to know on a daily basis that you're doing what you possibly can to make you feel better at that finish line, to avoid not achieving your goals. How else can a bad outcome in a race, in a result, not achieving your goals, how else can you turn it into the best thing that has ever happened to you? Not ever. I mean, again, I have a hard time saying it. Well, this approach of turning it into something positive, it requires you to look forward. The days and weeks following that big race are lonely. It's a shitty experience, excuse my language. That endless loop of woulda, coulda, shoulda, and self-pity that gets stuck in your brain, along with that sickening knot in your stomach, it's awful. It feels awful. It's like, listening to that same record over and over again. I stink, I stink, I stink. I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that was the outcome. I can't believe I didn't finish. I can't believe I didn't make the cutoff. I can't believe I didn't do this time or achieve that result. But instead, how about asking how I can progress? What will make me a better athlete given the result I just had? Looking forward. By asking yourself how you're going to make the result a stepping stone for the future, it pulls you out of that pattern of reflection, which is totally depressing, and gets you focused on moving forward. How will this be the best thing that could have happened? So let's focus on moving forward. And, what is depressing is if you didn't learn from the result and if you didn't move forward. Find the lesson. There's such great value and motivation to be found in our failures. It's our job to find the lesson and move forward smarter and better prepared. What else? How else can we make that result the best thing that could have happened that day? Maybe that's a better way to put it. Well, it places you in a position where you can be proactive and build momentum. The surest way to build that confidence back up again and get some forward progress and forward momentum going after a bad race, after a bad outcome, after a bad result is action. Getting on, right? Getting focused on making yourself better what you're going to improve on is incredibly empowering. And once you get a few workouts going and can feel yourself moving forward and closing that chapter and staying focused on moving forward and the goal at hand again and knowing what you learned, feels great. I mean, many could argue maybe it was just a bad day. Maybe you knew exactly what you did wrong and now you can focus on fixing it. Maybe you had just a big old brain fart on that day and didn't execute the plan in the midst of all that racing and anxiety. Maybe you let the day get in the way of your result. There are many reasons what might have gone wrong, but put the past behind you. It's history. And focus on moving forward. And that is done only today, not tomorrow. Take action today to make you a better athlete today than you were yesterday, and a better one tomorrow than you are today. Today, I will be better than yesterday as an athlete armed with the lessons of failure from yesterday, right? That's it. How else can we deal with these failures? How else can we make the race result the best thing that can happen to us, given that outcome, given that event, given how we're feeling? Well, it also teaches us to search for a positive outcome no matter what the negative situation, no matter what the result, no matter what the lack of achievement or how you're feeling. The reality is that a lot of crappy things happen over the course of a lifetime, on our every day actually. We can make all the contingency plans until we're blue in the face. But our girlfriend will still break our hearts. We won't get that job we want. We might even lose a loved one, right? It's life. SHIT just happens. Racing and and sports in general is like a microcosm for life. It's the proving grounds where we learn how to set and chase goals, figure out how to be a good teammate, which means also working with others, for example, where we develop our work ethic by sticking with it and discipline and consistency. And it's also, of course, a place where we learn to deal with failure. Being able to spin out of the negative situations and focus on a positive outcome helps us all in the future, not just in sports. Remember, there are plenty of obstacles in our life, difficulties, but by embracing them, by turning them into strengths, looking at them from a different angle, and then moving forward with strength, with energy, with persistence, pragmatism, conviction, it makes the obstacle the way forward. Actually, it makes it the only way. It's turning a negative situation into a positive one. And that's what this whole Dealing with Failure podcast is about. Turning that negative outcome into a positive one. How will I make that result the best thing that could have happened that day? And finally, it gives you a bad result, missing your goal, gives you the racing fuel, the motivation, the mindset to take your results to the next level too. Because armed with what you learned from this race, armed with how it felt, will motivate you, not only in your training, but also at your next event. It will motivate you to push through, to deal with adversity, to fight those negative feelings and get the result, in many cases even exceed the outcome that you're looking for. Because had you not had that bad result, and therefore if you did not have that fire in your belly to focus on exactly the outcome that you're looking for, well, you might never have achieved the goal that you're about to achieve. Once you adopt this mantra of turning things into a positive and using it as motivation towards your next event and applying it in your training, it's funny. Instead of seeing a poor performance as an excuse to beat yourself up, that painful memory of the race morphs into fuel, like rocket fuel to drive you forward. It becomes like, that high octane gas and catalyst that drives you forward in training in the weeks and months to the next race. In some cases, year, 2 years, 4 years if you're going for the next Olympiad. We make choices every single day on how we want to deal with adversity, on failure, and how we want to use that to motivate us going forward. There is absolutely no reason to wallow, to beat ourselves up about missing our goals. As Wendell Phillips said, what is defeat? Nothing but education, nothing but the first steps to something better. For every challenge we encounter, there's an opportunity for growth. And if you want to say it a different way, your pain today from that result, from that quote failure, from that missing my goals or not achieving what I wanted to achieve, that is pure strength tomorrow. It's your choice. It's your choice. And so our biggest mistake would be if we didn't learn from our mistakes and make us and turn us and motivate us into better, stronger athletes. I think I'll leave it at that for today. I think you should come out of this workout. My brain's already thinking of working out and training. I think you should come out of this podcast knowing and feeling quite motivated that we will take this all moving forward, and we're going to have a pretty darn good 2017, because whether goals were achieved or not achieved in 2016, we will move forward, we will progress, we will be better athletes next year than we are this year, while there's still a few weeks left in 2016. And no matter what the pressure is of the next goal, next outcome, next result, next achievement, we know now going into it that whatever happens on that day, we will still be stronger and better for it, because we're going to learn from it. And if that outcome wasn't achieved that we wanted, we're still going to be better, stronger, smarter from it. And we're going to still achieve our goals at some point, but we're going to be armed with new lessons, and we're going to be armed with motivation and even hotter burning fire in our belly to keep moving forward. Hope you guys have a great weekend. It's Friday on the usual podcast recording day. I look forward to writing a bunch of training plans next week for the holidays. So hopefully you are all motivated and can stay connected over the holidays and into the new year. And then it's 2017, and we're ready to get going, get rolling with all our training and events and camps, in my case, with that coast ride coming up in 4 weeks from today. All right, have a great weekend. Thank you for listening. I hope this helped a little bit on understanding how to deal with failure. And I look forward to it, 2017, working with all of you. Bye.